The legendary British autumns always tumble down in a hurry, but once Old Man Winter settles down over the countryside, he's slow and reluctant to move on. I don't doubt this, because the summertime in Britain that I got to know was a shy and bashful maid, timid to poke her head out from behind the sun. The Britain that I fell in love with is a country steeped in history and brimming with the future. A simple walk down a London street brings you across an exciting spectrum of this fascinating nation. The regal splendour of Buckingham Palace. The city where the money moves. Some of the world's finest hotels and shops in Piccadilly Circus. The charm of Edinburgh, capital of Scotland. And score well enough on this golf course at St Andrews where the game is said to have originated, and maybe Nessie will peep above Loch Ness to give you a wink. Why not join me for a quick look around and see why folks call this country Great Britain? The eminent politician, John Burns, once remarked that every drop of the River Thames is bursting with its own tale from history, and he was certainly right, because the long history of Britain began right here when the first Romans landed on these banks. People have been crossing these waters for thousands of years. Some take the historic London Bridge, which won't be falling down anytime soon. Then there's Waterloo Bridge, and of course perhaps one of the most famous views of any city in the world, Westminster Bridge with Big Ben in the background. What we see here is Tower Bridge, 270 metres long. It was completed in 1894 as a drawbridge to let the then new generation of large ships to come further up the Thames. Let's stroll through this glassed-in walkway, which links the two Victorian towers on either side of the bridge. From here, you can get a panoramic view of the Tower of London, the city, and the modern skyscrapers that are home to some of the world's most important financial exchanges. The view at night is exquisite. Hovering over the east end of London is a medieval castle that was the infamous crucible of early English history, the Tower of London. The first castle erected on this site was built by William the Conqueror in 1078. Many English kings actually made their home inside these walls until as late as the 15th century. But what happened here in subsequent times, when the tower was used as a prison, became the stuff of legend. The Bloody Tower, where Richard had 12-year-old King Edward and his brother, the Duke of York, murdered, so that Richard could fulfil his nefarious ambition of the throne. And the Green Tower, where Lady Jane Grey, known as the 9-Day Queen, was executed. Tools of torture give silent testament to the cruelties of those who lost power struggles in medieval society. I feel my flesh crawl at the sight of these grotesque tools. When Londoners say the city, they don't mean the urban area that they live in. They're talking about the district that is home to one of the world's most important financial centres. Its full name is actually the City of London. And this is the district that Britain's major banks, securities firms and intrepid insurance companies call home. London town humbly began as a small Roman garrison town, Londinium, in the 1st century AD. It was only during the Middle Ages that the city began to emerge as the strongest centre of wealth and power in the British Isles. Like most medieval towns throughout Europe, the city was originally a walled town, but naturally as the city grew and prospered, the wall was no longer necessary. The population soon exploded into the surrounding countryside, and the whole area became a true metropolis. The city remains a special administrative district today, and it even has its own Lord Mayor. The Queen herself can't enter the city without the Lord Mayor's permission. Think of London, and cheerful double-decker buses soon come to mind. These famous buses seem to like to socialise with each other in Trafalgar Square. The square is where the stately Westminster district and the entertainment district of Soho meet for a spot of tea. The historic column in the centre of the square commemorates Lord Admiral Nelson and towers over Trafalgar from a height of almost 60 feet. One of the greatest heroes of British history, Nelson preserved the realm when he defeated Napoleon at the Battle of Trafalgar, and this column was built in honour of that decisive victory. If you look closely at the base of the column, you'll see depictions of 4 different battle scenes, and looking as if they're ready to protect each of these scenes sit 4 very serious-looking lions. Replicas of these lions can be found all over the world, from New York's Public Library to Tokyo's Ginza district. But take a second look at these lions. You may realise there's something unnatural about this pose. Lions, or domestic cats for that matter, never actually sit in erect positions with their legs forward, but that doesn't seem to bother these big stone kitties. Keeping a watchful eye over Britain's government offices in Westminster is Big Ben, a trademark for all that is British. Big Ben lords over the Houses of Parliament, where the system of government that has become a model for the entire world was born. The Houses of Parliament are not only a historical treasure for the impact they have made as a model for democracy all over the world, they are an important architectural landmark as well. Big Ben stands at the north end of the building and is known universally as the symbol of London. The clock strikes every 15 minutes, and when the clock rings out the hour on a clear day, you can hear its chimes all over London. Actually, there are lovely clocks built into buildings all over this town. Maybe this is why if you make an appointment with an English person, they're sure to be punctual. Is there anyone in the world who doesn't know where this is? Red jackets, large black bearskin hats? Of course, it's Buckingham Palace. The palace was originally built in 1703 as a private residence for Lord Buckingham. It was later bought by the Crown, and Queen Victoria was the first royal to live here. She moved in shortly after her coronation in 1837, and since then it has been the official address for Britain's royal families. Some place to live. Look at the tourists hanging in over the fences. But if you were to ask a Briton who they thought their most famous star was, what do you think they'd probably answer? The Beatles? The Rolling Stones? Elton John? Not on your life. They'd most likely say Queen Elizabeth and the royal family. You see, the royal family takes part in nearly 400 affairs of state every year. They travel to foreign countries and represent Great Britain. Being a queen can be a pretty tough and trying job. Almost 1/10 of London is set aside for its famous parks. You can tell what to expect from the park you're about to visit by its name. A garden is a former palace. And don't expect to find even sides to a square in London, because they're all rectangular in shape. Most of them have a lawn and trees in the centre. If you ever had Latin lessons, you'll probably remember that circus is related to the word circle and means a round, open public area. A walk and a promenade are, of course, parks designed with pedestrians in mind, and a park is simply what you'd think it was. St James's Park is the oldest park in London, though its layout remains fairly typical. Once upon a time, it was simply a wide field, but when the French built the breathtakingly beautiful gardens at Versailles, their dear rivals across the Channel seethed at being outdone, So King Charles commissioned the construction of St James's, modelling it after Versailles. The Piccadilly area might be the perfect place to sample a cup of tea. Uh-oh, illegal parking. It seems that meter maids the world over can never get a break. Yes, this is Piccadilly Circus, where a beautiful boy stands over the centre. Boy? Yes, he's a boy. His name is Eros, and he's one of the most famous symbols of London. This statue was completed in 1893 from a design by A. Gilbert. Mr. Gilbert, however, was a very unhappy man when he realised the basin beneath his statue was built to the wrong specifications, and instead of collecting water, gave a good splashing to passers-by. Gilbert was so incensed he didn't even come to the unveiling ceremony. Fortunately for pedestrian traffic, the basin was eventually rebuilt, and no one gets splashed anymore. In fact, Londoners regularly use this statue as a favourite rendezvous point. Walking through Piccadilly toward Green Park, you'll pass by many of London's swankiest hotels, including the Ritz. This area is also a hub for airline offices, banks, and upscale shopping. But if it's shopping you're looking for, then let's turn onto Regent Street and walk in the direction of Oxford Circus. We can turn over to Bond Street, but be careful. The shopping here is so good, you might be strolling through this area for a few more hours than you'd planned. Just west of London is historical Windsor. Tradition runs deep through these streets. This town has prospered as the home of the royal family for the past 900 years. The castle grounds here cover an area of over 50,000 square yards, making them the largest royal residence in the world. It wasn't always so impressive. This splendid castle started off as a wooden fortress built by William the Conqueror in 1087. Several centuries after that, those logs were reinforced with stones, and from those humble origins you see the palace before us. Strolling around the castle grounds is like taking a walk back to the Tudor period. Notice the old-fashioned restaurants and the many antique shops. This is where the Queen and her family generally relax over the weekends. The Union Jack is hoisted above the round tower when the Queen is in residence. Is she in today? Let's take a look. Sure enough, I guess she knew we were coming. This ancient riverside town is a few hundred miles west of London. The town's name, B-A-T-H, is actually where we got the word for the tub that sits in your home. Over 2,000 years ago, tired Roman soldiers found a quiet respite from their conquests in this tranquil area. It was so peaceful that they opened a spa. This tradition continued over the centuries, reaching a climax with the 18th century Victorians. Such people as Charles Dickens, Lady Hamilton, Admiral Nelson, and even Queen Victoria herself came to these spas for their health. Many beautiful Georgian mansions were built here at that time. Today, more than 2 million litres of pure, fresh spring water still gush forth into the hot springs at Bath every day. This water is pleasantly warm, chock full of minerals, and is said to soothe aching joints. Take a look at this crescent in the northwest corner of Bath. It's a beautiful curve, isn't it? I wonder about the rooms in the house. Do you think they're curved too? A simple mystery compared with this one, Stonehenge. If only these silent stones could speak, what a story they could tell. What do these arrangements mean? And how were they carved and moved to this place? Only stony silence in reply. The largest city in the south of England is Portsmouth. This city was only a tiny little port town up until the beginning of the last century, but when Britannia's ships ruled the waves, Portsmouth prospered as an important naval town. Many important battles were planned and launched from Portsmouth, including the Battle of Trafalgar and the D-Day landings. Let's do something very English now. Let's talk about the weather. The British Isles are quite high in latitude, but thanks to the warm Gulf Stream, temperatures never get too cold. And if you look on a map, you'll be surprised to see just how far north London actually is. But remarkably, there is very little snow in winter. Summertime is cool and temperate. It never gets too hot, and you might need a light jacket some evenings. Foggy rain is as much a part of London as meat pies, though you'll notice that it has to be raining pretty hard before Britons actually raise their umbrellas. The saying here goes, if you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes. Well, they're certainly right. When I arrived in Portsmouth this morning, it was a beautiful and sunny day. It now looks as if we're about to have a downpour. Look, it could be a scene from one of Turner's gorgeous paintings. There are 750,000 people who call the capital of Scotland their home. Edinburgh Castle is perched above the city, looking down over the changes that are bringing this quaint historical town into the forefront of modern sophistication. This castle has indeed seen a lot. At different times in its long life, it witnessed the rise and fall of King James I, Mary Queen of Scots, and the Reformationist John Knox. Scotland and England have been politically united since 1707, but calling a Scot an Englishman is still a gaffe too terrifying to ponder. Scotsmen take great pride in their whisky, which in the original Gaelic language means water of life. Their whiskies are made from pure malt. You should know that unless your beverage of choice is genuinely from Scotland, it has no right to call itself Scotch. Here's a tip for Scotland-bound tipplers. If you order whisky in a Scottish pub, never order it up or on the rocks. Scotsmen drink it either straight or with soda water. You may, however, chase it down with water. So if you enjoy a good glass of whisky, don't miss the chance to quaff one in the land that gave it birth. Edinburgh is widely known to be an important cultural centre. Every summer, the city is packed with art lovers who descend from all corners of Europe for the famed Edinburgh Festival. This beautiful scenery has been immortalised in films such as My Way and Chariots of Fire. But that's not the only reason why St Andrews is famous. This is actually the birthplace of the game of golf. Golf wasn't always a gentleman's sport. In fact, legend has it that the game began when some visiting Dutch sailors thwacked around a ball with sticks on a Scottish beach. It looked like such fun that the Scotsman found a way to make a sport out of it. Whatever, we do know that this is the first golf course in the world, and it's also where the British Open is held every year. St Andrews now has 3 newer courses, and visiting golfers are always welcome. The fee to play on this world-famous course is incredibly reasonable. In fact, it can be as low as £10, and if you're a resident of St Andrews, you can play here for free. Perhaps that explains why so many young golfers from these parts play such a strong game. There is one special difficulty to this course though. A strong ocean breeze is constantly blowing balls off course. But wouldn't you love to tee up here? After a tiring round of golf at St Andrews, nothing would seem more relaxing than a quiet afternoon at a beautiful lakeside. But watch out for swimming monsters, because this is no ordinary lake. It's home to the legendary Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster. This lake is only about 300 metres deep, but because the rivers that flow into it contain so much silt, its waters are murky enough to hide a legion of dinosaur-like creatures, which is all to Nessie's advantage, I suppose. Along the lakeshore stand the lonely ruins of Urquhart Castle, which was razed by the English in the 17th century. I wonder if any ghosts remain behind. Up into the highlands, you'll find a beauty and grandeur that will leave you breathless. Like Braemar. Pure, perhaps untamable, steep mountains and rugged wetlands, mystical glens and deep lakes, lonely castles and pensive mansions. The Highlands are a facet to Britain that goes a long way to explain the character of a people that can be so tenacious, fierce and gentle all at the same time. What a beautiful note to end our trip around Great Britain with. I hope you've enjoyed this adventure as much as I have. By the way, some of my snapshots of Loch Ness show a small reptile-like head emerging from the water. I thought I'd been focusing on you. Only kidding. What's a tour of Britain without a little British humour? Well, hope to meet up with you again somewhere. How about back in Scotland? Maybe I'll try to get Nessie to pose with me this time.